Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Piruni Karnaratna. Let's start off with a look at your top stories for tonight.
Sri Lanka's new chief of police assumes duties.
මගේ පත්වීම් බලධාරී අධිකාරි ජනාධිපතිතුමා විසින් මට මේ තනතුර පත් කරා කියලා ලිඛිතව ලිපියක් ලබා දීලා ඒ අනුව මම බාර ගන්න තිනවා. මට ඉන් එහාට මොකද
Supreme Court dismisses Sumandiran's FR against Online Safety Act. SLPP says it is against SLT and SLIC privatisation. Non-academic staff continue strike. University operations disrupted. Kehelia faked an illness to evade court, reveals AG's department. Putin warns risk of nuclear war if West sends troops to Ukraine.
On to your top story tonight, Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakon said that he officially assumed his responsibilities in his new position following a written appointment letter by the President, who is the appointing authority. And he added that there is no issue beyond that. He was responding to a question posed by journalists following his meeting with Public Securities Minister Tiran Alas. None of that matters to me. My appointing officer is the President. An official letter has been issued declaring that I was officially appointed as the IGP by the President. Accordingly, I have assumed duties in this new role. I have no further issues thereafter. He specifically advised me to carry out the ongoing operations to eliminate drugs from the country in the same way but with further improvements. He further said that the government will provide any technological assistance to improve and enhance the quality of new methods required by the police to reduce crime and increase the quality of criminal investigations.
රජයේ මැදිහත්වීම්දී කරලා ඒවා උසස් තත්ත්වයට ගැනීමට උදව් කරනවා කියලා ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් අවධානය යොමු කරලා ක්‍රියා කරන්න කියලා තමයි කිව්වේ.
පහුගිය කාලේ අපි දැක්ක ඔබතුමාට සහ කිසිපර අමාත්‍යවරයාට තර්ජන එනවා වැඩි. දැන් ඔබතුමාට තව වැඩි වේද ගන්න මේ කටයුතු පාර්ලිමේන්තුවත් එක්ක.
අපිට තර්ජන වල අඩුවක් වෙන එකක් නෑ.
We will have no shortage of threats. They may increase, but we have the police force and the STF with us, providing us protection.
After assuming duties as the Inspector General of Police, Deshabandhu Tennakon visited the Ministry of Public Security and met the Minister in charge, Tiran Alas. Deshabandhu Tennakon assumed duties as the 36th Inspector General of Police this morning at the police headquarters. Senior officers of police welcomed the new IGP, along with the guard of honour extended by officers of the police and the police special task force. The new IGP commenced duties at an auspicious time after seeking multi-religious blessings.
Saranang gacchami Supattavena kassayakka bhutanam āgami vārana Ta'ala wa sallam ala khalqihi sayyidina maulana
The newly appointed Inspector General of Police has given the green light to a comprehensive legal aid scheme aimed at providing assistance to police officers. The scheme, proposed by the Minister of Public Security, has also received cabinet approval. Under this initiative, police officers will have the opportunity to seek the expertise of private lawyers when faced with legal challenges. Specifically, the scheme addresses situations where the Attorney General's department either refuses or fails to provide legal assistance. In such cases, police officers can access private legal support if they encounter legal proceedings related to their official duties. Additionally, the scheme includes provisions for financial relief, addressing the financial constraints that police officers may encounter while seeking other legal services.
I am quite sure that there has been no other police officer who has been insulted, attacked, and slandered as much as I have in the past 157 years. I am standing strong today because of the charges, allegations and insults that were directed towards me. Therefore, I will serve the officers who are facing such challenges in the future with all my strength. I will bring about true change in the police, and I will create the environment for truly talented police officers to rise up in the ranks.
විශාල වෙනසක් කිරීමට මම බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා.
The new Inspector General of Police also met President Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning. Sri Lanka's Supreme Court ordered the dismissal of the fundamental rights petition filed by President's Counsel M.A. Sumandiran without granting permission for its examination.
The petition contested the validity of the Online Safety Act as a legally binding statute. The case was brought before the Supreme Court bench comprising Justice Priyantha Jayawardena, Justice Shiran Gunaratna and Justice Achala Vengapulli. President's Counsel and Jaffna District Member of Parliament M.A. Sumandiran filed a fundamental rights application in the Supreme Court challenging the Speaker's certification of the Online Safety Bill as having been enacted into law. He claimed that the Speaker certifying that the bill was enacted into law has violated the fundamental rights. The Speaker and the Attorney General were named as respondents. On the 20th of February, when the matter was called up, Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam, raising 5 objections, pointed out that as the bill has become an act and has been certified by the Speaker, it cannot be challenged at the Supreme Court. The judges emphasized that as an act duly passed by the Parliament, the court lacks the legal jurisdiction to scrutinize its validity. The Supreme Court has issued an interim injunction effectively overturning the Cabinet's decision to permit the continued use of the President's house on Paget Road, Colombo, by former President Maithripala Sirisena even after he left office. The court deliberated on the matter during the hearing of fundamental rights petitions filed by the Centre for Policy Alternatives and its founder, Executive Director Dr. Pakisuthi Saravanamuthu. The bench, comprising Justice Priyantha Jayawardena, Justice Gamini Amarasekara and Justice Kumuduni Wickremesinghe, while granting the interim restraining order, noted that the contentious decision was originally made during a cabinet meeting on the 15th of October 2019, where the respondent Maithripala Sirisena was also present. The court meticulously examined the documents and evidence presented, concluding that the decision contravenes the principles of natural justice. Previously, an interim order had been issued suspending the Cabinet's decision until the full hearing of the petitions take place. The Supreme Court rendered a decisive verdict revoking the legal standing of Nagananda Kodituaku, a prominent social and political activist. The court's decision follows an investigation into a formal complaint lodged against Kodituaku. The bench, comprising Justice Priyantha Jayawardena, Justice Preeti Padman Surasena and Justice Esture Raja, delivered the ruling today. The case traces back to 2014, when the defendant, Nagananda Kodituaku, submitted an affidavit to the Supreme Court. In that document, he requested measures to prevent proceedings before certain judges, alleging their corruption. The court, after thorough examination, deemed this action as an offence constituting misconduct. The Supreme Court has instructed its registrar to promptly notify the relevant authorities that Nagananda Kodituaku is no longer eligible to practice law.
Gamini Lokuge, a prominent member of the ruling Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna party, has publicly expressed his opposition to the privatisation of vital institutions such as Sri Lanka Telecom and Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation.
Speaking at a press conference alongside telecom trade unions, Lokuge emphasized that the party cannot endorse measures that would lead to the privatisation of these state-owned entities.
Now, however, journalists persistently questioned whether the party, which is the SLPP, is willing to support these potentially unfavourable proposals. As a party, we are unable to agree with the privatisation of banks, Sri Lanka Insurance and Sri Lanka Telecom. If we cannot protect state resources, we must sit in the opposition to do so. Today we've reached that decision as a party before making the announcement to the media. In 2018, we formed a government promising to protect state resources. Ranil Wickremesinghe and his associates have no right to sit in a government with MPs who gave that oath and destroy the profit-making state institutions and give it to his friends and allies. One is being given to India's Ambani, another to Amul, and another to Adani. Where are they heading with this? Are they trying to make this another Indian state? Where is the vistas of prosperity and splendor? At this media briefing with the leader of the SLPP trade union, parliamentarian Gamini Lokuge, we can directly inform Ranil Wickremesinghe that the MPs who agree to the vistas of prosperity and splendor do not support alienating these state assets.
However, journalists continue to raise questions and pointed out that every adverse proposal was approved by the SLPP, which has a majority within the government.
දැන් කනෝ කියලා සෑහෙන්න කෑ ගහනවා. Tamanට ඕන කෙනා පත් කරගෙන දැන් අද කෑ ගහනවා අරක විකුණනවා මේක විකුණනවා. දැන් මේව කරන්න නෙමෙයි ජනතාව දුන්නේ.
ඇත්ත. අපි
It is true that we formed a government based on a manifesto, but even if we have appointed him ourselves, if he deviates from our policies while in office, it is our duty to speak about it. We hope the Prime Minister would raise this matter with the President.
දැන්ටත් අපි කතා කරලා තියෙනවා.
කාලාන්තරයක් දැන් ගිහින් තියෙනවා. ඔය පාර්ලිමේන්තුව ඇතුලේ ගෙනාපු සෑම යෝජනාවකටම කිසිම බයක් හැකක් නැතුව අතීස් ඔබතුමල්ලා.
අතීස්
We have discussed all of them as a party.
පක්ෂයක් ඇටියෙ.
අගමැතිතුමා පොදුජන පෙරමුණේ. එතකොට කැබිනට් මන්ත්‍රීවරුත් පොදුජන පෙරමුණේ. ඇයි මේකට ඔබතුමන්ලාට කියන්න බැරි මේක මේව කරන්න එපා ජනාධිපතිතුමා මේක වැරදි මේක අපි මහාධ්‍යයට කියන්න නැතුව ඇත්තටම ඒක එතුමාට කියන්න පුළුවන් නේ.
දැන්ටමත් අපි
We have already talked about it. A committee has already been appointed by the Prime Minister, the Prime Minister's office and the President's office to discuss issues with the trade unions and get their opinions. We discussed this matter with the Prime Minister yesterday as well.
අගමැතිතුමත් එක්ක මේ සිම සාකච්ඡා කරා.
Amidst growing scrutiny of political promises versus actions, a critical question emerges. Is there an undisclosed plan to sell the country's valuable resources to favoured associates, potentially undermining their worth and creating various challenges? Yesterday, at the Court of Appeal, a writ petition filed by a foreign company shed light on these doubts.
Now, the court issued an interim order temporarily suspending the sale of government shares in Sri Lanka Telecom. Newsfirst, Dithmini De Silva brings us the details.
Last night, we had a look at the fate that may befall on the national carrier, Sri Lankan Airlines. Sri Lanka Telecom is also facing somewhat of a similar fate with regard to the divestment of its shares. Is there an attempt to sell off SLT for cheap? As concerns mounted over this matter, it was also taken to court. Now, Sri Lanka Telecom in the previous financial year generated profits in the billions of rupees. However, it appears that plans are afoot to award the majority share of this state-owned entity to a predetermined buyer instead of opting to the highest bidder. One faction that had shown its interest in this SOE had taken the matter to court and obtained an order preventing the sale of the shares of SLT to any faction until the 12th of March. The respondents in this application are Finance Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, Shehan Semasinghe, who is the State Finance Minister, as well as the State-Owned Enterprises Restructuring Unit located at Temple Trees. The reason for this is that in the privatisation process, it appears that a predetermined buyer is set for SLT instead of offering the entity to the highest bidder. However, the more suitable bidder has been informed that they do not meet the qualifications, and when they inquire for reasons, they are told that certain matters have not been submitted. Given what transpired recently, it is evident of what would happen to Sri Lankan Airlines, and fears are mounting over the fate of Sri Lanka Telecom as well, where the EPF, ETF and other government bodies are major shareholders. When you make the calculations based on the current rates for the shares, we can understand that an asset worth billions is likely to be given away for a cheap rate.
The second generation organization expressed their opinion at a press conference today.
මේ යන්නේ රට සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම වෙනත් රාජ්‍යයකට යටත් කිරීමේ
The country is heading in a direction where it would be completely conquered by another state. The war heroes made sacrifices to protect this country. The ruler, who does not have a mandate, is shamelessly introducing bills and regulations to pave the way for the country to be taken over by another state. At the same time, he introduces the Broadcasting Regulatory Authority Commission Act, the Anti-Terrorism Act, as well as the Online Safety Act. However, all these are introduced to suppress dissent. He is aware that the people will take to the streets against his decisions and conduct. The 13th Amendment was passed without police and land powers. The current ruler, however, says that he is ready to pass the 13th Amendment with police and land powers at a time when such a thing was not even called for by the youth of this country. This promise was made as a bribe to the TNA. The TNA votes in favor of the budget. In addition, the leader who led the war victory agreed with it. After the people became very critical about it, it faded away at the time. However, the current ruler says police powers will be given later and he is ready to pass the 13th Amendment with land powers. who gave Ranil Wickremesinghe a mandate to do so? If the majority of our country is acquired by another state, if we are losing our marine resources, and if we pass the bill, we will be losing 1/3 of our land. So who gave the current ruler the people's mandate to take these kinds of decisions? Does this parliament have such a mandate? If they are trying to get these through a document, we tell them to go away immediately.
අපිට අපේ සාගර සම්පත අහිමි කරලා අපේ භූමිය අහිමි කරලා ලියවිල්ලක් මගින් මේක ලබලා දෙන්න හදනවා නම් අපි කියනවා වහාම බහැලා යන්න.
Indo-Lanka fishing controversy. Fishermen from India's Rameshwaram are demanding unrestricted access to engaging fishing activities in the waters near Sri Lanka.
However, the Sri Lankan fishermen have reiterated their stance, asserting that there can be no room for concessions. The recent sentencing of 4 Indian fishermen by the Delft court for trespassing in the Sea of Sri Lanka has ignited tensions, prompting protest actions among Tamil Nadu's fishing community. In response to the court's decision, the president of Rameswaram Fishermen's Association engaged in a dialogue with Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin.
The fishermen detained in Sri Lankan prisons must be released. The boats held by Sri Lanka Navy must also be released. As a permanent solution to the issue, Sri Lankan fishermen in Indian prisons and Sri Lankan boats must be released.
The fishing community in Jaffna emphasized that there can be no further leniency or accommodation for any actions that violate established norms.
The fishing community in the north have been very lenient with the fishermen from Tamil Nadu, despite the use of bottom trawling to pillage our marine resources. Therefore, we will no longer allow them to pillage the Sea of Sri Lanka using illegal methods.
The Minister of Fisheries shared his perspective on the ongoing negotiations aimed at resolving the long-standing issue between the fishermen of Sri Lanka and India.
I spoke with the Fisheries Minister of Tamil Nadu over the phone and again after they met with the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu. They have consented to solve this, however, it will not transpire overnight. We hope for the quick implementation of a solution.
A recent newspaper advertisement coinciding with the visit of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Tamil Nadu has ignited controversy. The advertisement, placed by the Tamil Nadu Fisheries Minister, prominently features an image of a rocket adorned with the Chinese flag and Chinese characters. Prime Minister Modi and the Bharatiya Janata Party have expressed deep concern over this visual representation.
We'll be back after this short commercial break.
Do stay tuned to Primetime News.
The Bhagavat Gita is a scripture that is scientific and universal, which means it's meant for all humans across the globe.
In-person Bhagavat Gita lecture by Sunandaji on the 2nd to the 6th of March 2024 from 6:45 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Buddhist Cultural Center near Tomula Junction, Colombo 5. Registration and details vedantacolombo.org or contact 076-279-6113. Media sponsors TV1, Sirasa TV, Shakti TV and Newsfirst.
Welcome back to the news. In a major development surrounding the supply of substandard human immunoglobulin, a red notice was issued for the arrest of Jayanta Budhpritia, a member of the Evaluation Committee for Emergency Procurement, who also faces allegations over the medicine procurement scandal. Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama asserted that former Sri Lankan Health Minister Keheliya Rambukwella failed to attend the previous court proceedings after presenting inaccurate information regarding his medical condition.
Now, this revelation unfolded during the hearing of the case pertaining to the human immunoglobulin procurement scandal at the Maligakanda Magistrates Court today. Following today's hearing, the former health minister was returned to remand custody.
Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama submitted the report of the newly appointed expert committee tasked with investigating the failure of Keheliya Rambukwella to appear before the court during the previous court date. In the preceding hearing, the prison hospital doctor had submitted a medical report asserting that Rambukwella, the 8th suspect in the case, was unable to attend court due to a medical condition. However, The prosecution had raised concern over these claims. The expert medical committee appointed by the court conducted an inquiry and confirmed that the former health minister did not suffer from a medical condition that would prevent his court appearance. Furthermore, Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama noted that the committee determined that the suspect's condition did not warrant transfer from the prison hospital to a government hospital. In light of these findings, Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama requested appropriate measures be taken against the prison doctor for submitting false reports to the court. Meanwhile, former Minister of Health Keheliya Rambukwella has filed a fundamental rights petition with the Supreme Court regarding his arrest by the Criminal Investigations Department without reasonable cause. The Inspector General of Police and the Director of the CID have been named as respondents in the petition, which also seeks compensation of 1 million rupees.
The United Republic Front, led by parliamentarian Partli Champika Ranawaka, held discussions with the Tamil Progressive Alliance led by Mano Ganeshan today. Both sides said that there is nothing preventing them from working together as an alliance.
When's the election?
The discussion on the policies of the United Republic Front that was published recently was held at the Colombo residence of the leader of the Tamil Progressive Alliance, Mano Ganeshan.
The three of us sit next to each other in Parliament and we have similar views on social issues. We have a good understanding of how we think. We hope to unite for the future of the country. We even contested the previous general election and the presidential election together. There is nothing more to think about. We too represent the people. We are for everyone being within the frame of Sri Lanka and not outside of it. That needs to be understood. We are moving forward together and there is no issue there.
ඔබතුමාගේ සූදානම් වීම මැති ජනාධිපති මැතිවරණය කරද නැත්නම් මොකකටද සූදානම් වෙන්නේ?
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා ගන්න කොයි පක්ෂ කොයි මුස්සෙන් ගේන්නේ කියලා.
මම අහන්නේ ඔබතුමා කවවද දැන් රජ කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ? ජනතාව. ජනරජය. සභානායකතුමාට ඇරෙව එම්බිට්මන්ට් කියන්න යනවා. ඔව්. ඒක ඔබතුමා පක්ෂේ
අපි අවසන්.
We have not signed it, but we have been informed of it. Let's wait and see.
Partli Champika Ranawaka joined a special meeting yesterday alongside Shiv Shankar Menon, a distinguished former senior diplomatic officer from India, and Chandrika Bandaranayaka Kumaratunga, the former president of Sri Lanka. Partli Champika posted on X that the meeting contained a blend of diplomacy and camaraderie.
When's the election?
Minister Harin Fernando expressed optimism regarding the country's trajectory. He was speaking at the opening of the Bernard Aluvihari Stadium in Matale. The president is doing everything right. The value of the dollar against the rupee is now 307. I assume the currency will depreciate, and if that continues, we will lose export revenue. Those who do not understand this post Nivan Suwa on Facebook. They do not even understand the meaning of those words. Nivan Suwa is the best that we can wish for in this life. If those who comment such words and do not understand it are the ones who are going to take over the country, God bless this country. I hope the media would report this appropriately. The media edits the clips. I faced issues after making a speech in India. I was speaking about history, so I did not know how this will be edited. Therefore, it's wise to remain silent.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa has questioned whether there is any merit in participating in a legislative body where the speaker blatantly violates the constitution.
If the president proposes a name, 5 votes are required to approve it. 5 votes are also required to reject it, and it is given in writing. However, the speaker is disregarding what is mentioned in the constitution and deciding matters on his own. That means the constitution is being violated. A speaker who does not even understand this is blatantly violating the constitution. The supreme law is being violated. This is similar to shredding the constitution into pieces.
Former President Chandrika Bandaranayaka Kumaratunga highlighted the need for increased participation of women in Sri Lankan government and society. She was speaking at the Global Jubilee celebrations of the Young Muslim Women's League in Colombo yesterday.
The Young Muslim Women's League, a charitable organization dedicated to social welfare for 50 years, celebrated its Golden Jubilee anniversary in Colombo with nearly 500 guests. The event marked 5 decades of YMWL's work in supporting the underprivileged. Former Sri Lankan President Chandrika Kumaratunga used the platform to address two important issues: the low representation of women in politics and parliament, and the ongoing problem of domestic violence.
The poor participation of women in leadership in this country, even though we boast of having produced the world's first woman Prime Minister and so on. I don't know why, but women's representation in parliament is very low. Most of the ladies who went into these male-dominated Pradeshia Sabhas and local government bodies were treated very badly by their male counterparts. They used to insult them, they used to physically sort of push them around, say rude things to them, and make all kinds of comments, sexually abusive comments. I heard Professor Hanifa telling us about domestic abuse of women. The highest incidence of physical abuse of women happens in their own homes, at the hands of their husbands and partners. And in the last few years, or last decade perhaps, this has increased exponentially. Women abuse is incredibly high in this country. And I'm sad to say that society as a whole, and government especially, just turns away and does not take much notice of this. This is an area perhaps where the young Muslim Women's League can take leadership, at least among the Muslim ladies. Physical abuse of women is at a very, very high level in this country. So, rape, physical abuse, and so on. Not speaking of the child abuse, which has also increased hugely.
Who is the world's first Prime Minister that former President Bandaranaike was referring to? It is none other than her mother, Sirimava Bandaranaike. Sirimava Bandaranaike's party secured a resounding victory in the 1960 general election in Ceylon, making her the world's first woman Prime Minister. She left office in 1965 but returned to serve 2 more terms as Prime Minister between 1970 and 2000.
Sri Lanka Navy inked a nuclear security pact with the US administration.
The Sri Lanka Navy signed a memorandum of understanding with the US National Nuclear Security Administration at the Navy headquarters on Wednesday. The MOU was signed in the presence of US Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, and the Commander of the Sri Lanka Navy, Vice Admiral Priyantha Pereira. The Memorandum of Understanding addressed bilateral cooperation to detect and interdict illicit trafficking in special nuclear material and other radioactive material through technical and methodological cooperation, including the installation and improvement of technical systems for the detection and identification of such material at border crossing control points of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Director General Engineering Rear Admiral Ravi Ranasinghe, Director General Operations Rear Admiral Nishantha Pires, senior naval officers and a group of officials of the US Embassy in Colombo were also present on this occasion.
Dr. Richard Gio, the Senior Vice President of Asia Pacific Field Conservation International, stressed that countries like Sri Lanka must protect nature to face climate shocks. He was speaking on the sidelines of the second day of the Climate Change, Maritime Disaster Management and Pathfinder Indian Ocean Security Conference, Phase 3, 2024.
Day 2 of the Pathfinder Indian Ocean Security Conference, Phase 3 2024, took place under the theme Climate Change, Maritime Disaster Management and Blue-Green Economy.
We are bringing to you this conversation from the second day of the Indian Ocean Security Conference, Phase 3 of Pathfinder. And with me right now is Dr. Richard Gio. Dr. Richard Gio, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Dr. Richard, climate change is having a huge impact on island nations like Sri Lanka and Maldives, with seawater levels rising up. And Sri Lanka being a tourist destination, which is an island full of beaches, will the coastline of Sri Lanka remain in the future?
Climate change models predict, big changes, but we don't know exactly what those changes will be. So the best chances for countries like Sri Lanka are to protect nature and to do it in a way with the local communities that live in and around nature, to build economies and keep those ecosystems that people rely on intact, because we know that healthy functioning ecosystems are the best frontline defense against the effects of climate change, not only from things like guarding the coastlines against these unprecedented catastrophes and typhoons and storms that happen at weird times of the year, but also to build new economies that actually are positive for nature.
Thank you so much, Dr. Richard. Bringing to you this conversation, I am Bulletin for Newsfirst.
China Harbour Engineering Company Limited issued a statement today concerning recent allegations about the misuse of construction sand.
China Harbour Engineering Company Limited said that recent allegations made by an individual affiliated to a political party concerning irregularities with regard to the use of sand intended for construction works at Port City Colombo being instead utilised for construction works at the Port of Colombo have been brought to its attention. It added that there are no unethical or illegal activities taking place in this regard. It said that it had taken steps to conduct a thorough internal investigation into this matter and assured all stakeholders that the findings of this investigation will be made available to the respective authorities so that immediate action can be taken if required.
The Joint Committee of University Trade Unions, currently engaged in a token strike, gathered in front of the Ministry of Education to voice their grievances.
The non-academic staff members of public universities across the island walked off their duties yesterday, initiating a 2-day strike to address the pressing issue of salary disparity. As a consequence, academic activities in several universities have been disrupted. Today, the Joint Committee of University Trade Unions assembled in front of the Ministry of Education to voice their demands. They insist that given the current economic situation, a salary increase is imperative. The protest lasted for nearly 3 hours, during which scenes of demonstrations and heightened security unfolded. Thereafter, representatives were given an opportunity to meet with Education Ministry officials to raise their concerns.
We tried reaching the minister, but he is currently overseas. The secretary too is unavailable at the moment. We met the secretary of the minister and the additional secretary of the ministry. We emphasized on the delays in finding solutions to our problems, according to the cabinet paper issued on the 22nd of January 2022. She said that the report was submitted on the 20th. However, given the minister being overseas and the finance ministry seeking observations, the cabinet had accepted the letter. An assurance was given that the paper will be moved on Monday. That, however, is not sufficient.
Parliamentarian Basanta Bandara called on the Mahanayakas in Kandy.
A delegation led by Vasantayapa Bandara called on the Mahanayaka of the Malwatu chapter of the Siam sect, the Mahanayaka of the Asgiri chapter of the Siam sect, the chief prelate of the Amarapura sect and the Mahanayaka of the Ramana sect in Kandy. The MP highlighted the plight of the Sri Lankan youth who are trapped in cyber slave camps in the Miyawadi region in Myanmar during these discussions. Bandara said since there is no proper program put forward by the government to rescue and bring back the trapped youth, it was decided to raise the matter with the Mahanayaka Theros and obtain a letter from them seeking the release of the youth. He added that the letter will be taken to the Mahanayaka Thero in Myanmar to persuade local authorities there to intervene in rescuing the Sri Lankan youth.
Elevate your business insight and self-worth with renowned Harvard professor Dr. Boris Groisberg on the 4th, 5th and 6th of March as he joins Sri Lanka's leading business minds, deconstructing and analyzing the world's most successful brands and their inspiring case studies. Join this rare opportunity to participate in an interactive study and discussion series. Entry by reservation only. Call 0777 881 922. Media sponsor, Newsfirst.
Welcome back to the news. The weekly silent protest that is staged at the Liberty Circle took place today as well.
Civil activists gathered at the Liberty Circle in Colombo to express their dismay over the lack of attention to pressing issues in the country.
We are showing the world that we are not afraid, we are not deterred, we are not intimidated. We are here standing for good governance, the end of corruption, nepotism. We want equal application of the law. We want to see a better system, better government system, political culture. This is what we need in our country right now. There are people suffering, there are people starving. We need to change things. 7 million people below the poverty line. right now in a population of 22 million. That's a staggering amount of people who are really suffering. And, you know, people think that our country is back to its glory. No, it's not. So we are urging people, come out, show your dissent, because we need better leaders in our country.
Activists held placards to express their dismay to the current state of affairs.
News first with the people.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe assured that immediate relief would be provided to all those entitled to receive the Aswasuma benefits.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe attended a meeting to investigate the implementation of Aswasuma Welfare Benefit Program at the Vgam Divisional Secretariat in Matale, marking the first time a president has ever visited the Vgam Divisional Secretariat. Wickremesinghe visited the Corporate Accounting and Finance divisions to observe the activities of those divisions as well.
Now we have to identify all the beneficiaries of our Aswasuma welfare benefits and provide them with the aid directly through the bank. I hope to successfully implement the Aswasuma welfare program in this way. There were only 1.5 million of Samurdhi beneficiaries so far, but now we have proposed to increase this to 2.4 million. Salaries of the state sector increased and they will receive the increment on 10,000 rupees by April.
Sri Lanka was honoured with UN Award for Mangrove Ecosystem Restoration at the 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly in Kenya.
Sri Lanka has been lauded with prestigious World Restoration Flagship Award by the United Nations Environment Programme for its remarkable efforts in rejuvenating mangrove ecosystems. The announcement was made during the 6th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, emphasizing Sri Lanka's pivotal role in pioneering effective solutions for ecosystem revitalization, crucial to sustaining both lives and livelihoods nationwide. At the UNEA 6 conference held at the headquarters of the United Nations Environment Programme in Nairobi, Kenya, Senior Advisor to the President on Climate Change, Ruwan Wijewardena, represented Sri Lanka. Dr. Anil Rajsinghe, Secretary to the Minister of Environment, accepted the UN Flagship Restoration Award on behalf of the nation.
Up next is Corporate Brief.
The Civil Cook Agencies launched a revolutionary new termite protection solution. Mozawi 10FL uses novel technology to reduce the damage caused to the soil, thereby minimizing the damage to the environment. Kingsman Perennial opened a new store in Colombo 4. The new store has an exclusive showcase featuring meticulously crafted capsule collections.
On to news from overseas now. Russian President Vladimir Putin has warned that the consequences of possible interventions in the Russian Federation would be much more tragic than in previous eras. He said, quote-unquote, attempts at a new intervention in Russia threatens a large-scale conflict with the use of nuclear weapons.
President Vladimir Putin delivered his annual message to the Federal Assembly, Russia's national legislature. The address at Gorsiny Dvor in central Moscow took place just over 2 weeks ahead of the presidential vote in Russia, in which Putin is running for re-election. Putin says Russia will need to strengthen its western military district now that Sweden and Finland have joined NATO. Finland has a long land border with northwest Russia. Putin says anybody who tried to invade Russia would face harsher consequences than World War II because the country now had weapons that could hit targets on enemy territory. Russian President Vladimir Putin, in his annual State of the Nation address, said that Moscow is ready for dialogue with the United States on strategic stability, but rejects any attempts to force Russia into talks. He also noted that the majority of Russians support Russia's special military operation in Ukraine. The Russian leader also says he is confident that Russia will become one of the 4 largest economies in the world in the near future. The Russian president says he believes it is important for Russia to strengthen ties with Arab countries and with Latin American countries.
The mother of parliamentarian M.A. Sumantiran has passed away. The remains of the late Gladys Pushparani Mathiaparanan will be laid for viewing at the A.F. Raymond's Parlour. The final rites will be performed at the General Cemetery in Borella at 5 p.m. on the 1st of March. Politicians, relatives, among others, were there to pay their final respects.
And with that, we wrap up Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you for watching.
Good night.